My name is Helen Romero Shaw, and I serve as the board president of the United Latinx Fund. I work for Southern California Gas Company in the position of Public Affairs Manager. I am pleased to introduce you to tonight's moderator, Cristina Sanchez. Cristina is a senior partner at Milagro Strategy Group. Cristina will engage a thoughtful conversation with our guest speaker, Andy Carrasco, Vice President of Strategy and Engagement and Chief Environmental Officer at SoCalGas. Ladies and gentlemen, I hand this over to Ms. Cristina Sanchez. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen, for a beautiful welcome and for your leadership at ULF. I want to thank everybody for joining us this evening. I'm very excited to moderate tonight's Fireside CharLA. And before we begin our program with Andy, I do want to give him a shout out for his recent promotion to Vice President and a big role at SoCalGas. So felicidades, Andy.
Gracias.
I also want to remind everyone that our program is designed to engage everyone. It is interactive. If you have a question on a topic for tonight, please enter your questions in the chat box. Everybody's audio will be muted for this evening until it's time for the Q&As. Our program is short and it's sweet. It's 30 minutes long and it's being broadcast via Facebook Live on the ULF Fund Facebook page. A link is in the chat box. You can access it and have a watch party and on your own. If you have any technical questions or difficulties, we have Jake standing by and he'll be able to help you. So let's begin with our special guest. Andy, again, bienvenido. Muchísimas gracias. Thanks for joining us. We look at what we're facing right now. In our generation, I don't think we've ever faced a pandemic of this type. And were we even ready? We look at what's reliable in our lives. And one of the things that we know that has been reliable is our utilities. We know that our utilities are part of the region's critical infrastructure, and they're vital to the security, economy, public health, and safety of California. Southern California Gas has been a critical resource throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Andy, please share with us, number one, the magnitude of what we face and how SoCalGas faced this problem and what your response was.
Absolutely. First of all, I just want to say thank you very much for having me and really for putting on these charlas in support of the community. Kudos to ULF for being a pioneer and taking this full on. I've really enjoyed the last couple of charlas you had, and I just know that knowledge is power. I do want to give a quick shout out, first of all, to Helen, your board chair, but a longstanding colleague and SoCalGas employer and a leader out in the community where she serves. And I see many others who have joined in from the SoCalGas family. Thank you for doing that. I've been with the company, I'm going to give you a little bit of background first because I think it's important to put some context around. I've been with the company 19 years as of January. And Cristina, to your point, you're right. The magnitude of this crisis, this situation is one that we would never, ever have thought of. Yes, we've heard of pandemics. Yes, we've had natural disasters, but to this magnitude is one that would not have, at least in my windshield, would have been even possible to even go through. But that being said, you're right. The local energy sector, includes the infrastructure sector, is essential. It was called essential by the governor, by the federal government as well. And so we're out there day in and day out. Let me start by giving you just a real quick statistics on SoCalGas. For those who are familiar or who are not, we span almost half the state. We have about 235 cities and counties within our service territory, one that reaches 22 million customers from Fresno to the north, all the way to the Mexican border, minus San Diego. We're actually the largest natural gas utility provider in the nation. And that really means that we serve a lot of people. You might have seen our logo, our service tagline that says glad to be of service. And I want to tell you something, that's what we're all about, and we will continue to be that. We totally get this. These are challenging times for all of us. And what we're facing with the stay-at-home orders, you bet we're making sure that first and primary, that the natural gas service that you're accustomed to will be there for you, for our community, for the most vulnerable. If you think about it, after all, we're staying at home, which means we're cooking more, you're taking hot showers, and you got to remember this heat wave that just hit us, just came to us pretty quickly. Before that, early March, it was a bit cold, and so we were turning on the heaters. We had to make sure that that infrastructure is in place, that it is serving our 22 million customers. So it was important that we, from the get-go, had a plan. We monitor this COVID-19 from the very beginning. We follow the governor's executive orders. But what we did was something that was very, very important. We needed to make sure that we were following the correct orders on the protocols for COVID-19, making sure that our customers, our employees, our communities were safe. We were continuing the most important part of our services, and that is, if you were calling us about a service gas leak or a carbon monoxide check, or even if you were moving under all these conditions, that we were going to be there for you, that we were going to provide you service, and making sure that those basic needs were met. I can also tell you that we needed to really look at the well-being of both our customers and our employees. We instituted the work from home quickly. So half of our employee base is working from home, like myself. We have about 7,600 employees at SoCalGas throughout our service territory. So that's a lot of folks that had to shift the way they work. The other employees out in our operations, we were making sure that they had equipment that they needed to be safe, not only for themselves, but for the communities they served and the homes that we were going to walk into. And so if there's anything that we've learned here real quickly, like anything else in a good relationship, you need to communicate. You need to constantly communicate. So we were doing that both internally and externally to get the message out, making sure that you were aware, that everyone in our community aware is that we were going to be there for you.
Thank you, Andy. Very, very insightful. I want to remind anybody, if you have a question, to please put it on the chat box. You talk about implementing the protocols, but by the same token, I don't think there were any protocols set in place for what we were replacing. I think that we were building the plane as we were flying it for the most part. So that's where leadership comes in at corporations and government. And I want to commend you, Andy, for the leadership that you've taken on behalf of SoCalGas to be proactive with your consumers. As we read who this pandemic, who COVID-19 is affecting, and we see that there's vulnerable populations, but we see also that there's been an over-index for the African-American and the Latino community for the most part.
That's right.
What is SoCalGas doing to address the needs of the communities of color?
Yeah, that's an important question. I just want to put some context out there. Listen, I'm an Angelino. Born and raised on the east side in here in LA, and I get it. I have family who live here. I've got elder folks, and so that's who I keep in mind when we think about the most vulnerable. What do we need to do to protect them, to make sure they're aware of what the opportunities for engagement and participation for some of the things that we're doing. Christina, to your point, these are extraordinary times, and it really calls for extraordinary measures. And I can tell you, I'm not one to shy away from a challenge, especially where one is needed. And you're right, we were building that plane when it was taking off, and it really needed some quick engineering, so to speak. So one of the things we did right away, and we knew this was going to be important, even before there was a directive from the state or our regulator, is that we said we're suspending all service disconnections to our customers until further notice. What that really meant was that any residential or small business wouldn't have their gas turned off for non-payment. We knew that if people were going to stay at home and if they were going to have a very limited business, that they needed to operate, and that we were not going to go after non-payments. That's true right now. As a matter of fact, we even took it further. We said, if we disconnected you any time this year, so before even March, we'll reconnect you because we know now you're at home. And that meant that we were going to do that across the board for some possible vulnerable folks who, for whatever reason, even before COVID, we were going to provide that service. We had made sure that we had our representatives still available 24/7. We had to change the operation of that customer service, making sure that we kept that social distancing, but we're still there. If you call us on Sunday at 11 p.m., we're going to answer. And guess what? We're doing it in language. We're doing it in English, we're doing it in Spanish, Vietnamese, Korean, and all these other languages that we know our customers speak. I think it was also important that we stepped up our customer assistance program. And if you can bring up that collateral piece, we were making sure that we were communicating and over communicating through various channels, through our government partnerships, through our nonprofits, through social media, making sure that folks were aware that there was services to help you. One, there's the CARE program. That's the 20% discount to our customers who could, at this very point in time, be unemployed, have their hours cut, have a income reduction, or for that matter, be unemployed. And this could be a new pool of people who never have tapped into these programs. So we're trying to reach them, especially our younger folks who were working for the service sector, who now find themselves unemployed or reduced hours. These programs are available to you. We wanted to make sure that people who are who have medical issues, that they were aware of there was programs already in existence for them as well. So these are already instituted programs, but they may not be aware across all our most vulnerable communities. And I understand it, I get it. I recognize, and we recognize, that some of the best partnerships that we have are with our nonprofits. Our communities trust them. In some cases where folks are coming from countries where the government runs the energy sector, there's no trust. Mm-hmm. And there's that availability to disconnect from those communities. And I will tell you, we're non-governmental, but I get it. And if they get the messaging from our community nonprofits, it resonates better. So we try to do that. We try to partner with our nonprofits. The other thing that we knew that was going to come forward is that ability to pay. And we talked about we weren't going to turn anybody off, but there are partnerships out there. We partner with the United Way for the Gas Assistance Fund. And I think we have a page on there, or at least a link that I'll share, that we offer a one-time grant on those third parties up to $100 on utility relief. And I think that was important to get that information out there. And if I can just dive in just a little bit more, Christina, on just community-based organization, our support. From the get-go, we knew that it was important to come out strong and put our money where our mouth is, where our big community partners were. And that was to provide $1 million relief in 3 efforts. One was feeding the hungry. We knew that there was going to be some folks out there who were going to be recently unemployed that needed the basics, and that was food. The second was workforce training, partnering with organizations that were looking at ways to look at the new unemployed, ways to get them back to work. And then the third was just that utility relief fund, helping those who could not pay their utility bill. And in addition to that, we had our Sempra Energy Foundation, which is our parent company, also reach out and provide smaller grants to those organizations that were doing that effort in a much smaller focus, but throughout our service territory.
Amazing stuff that you've been doing, particularly with your contributions to those so important nonprofit groups that do or have the opportunity to relay the information and everything that you're doing. So thank you for doing that, Andy. I'm going to ask you a very, just kind of, if you could step back and look at how we've all had to pivot, work from home, really just, be in our homes for the most part. And thank you for the gas company for being so reliable. Give us a snapshot of a day in Andy's life from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed.
Absolutely. I'll do that. It doesn't look like this. There's usually a t-shirt and some sweats and shorts or what have you. But really, in all seriousness, for me, it starts really early. I'm an early person. I, get up and check my emails, make sure, look through my calendar, make sure the calls are in place, and calls like this, and there's plenty. I'm acting as the public information officer for the COVID-19 response for SoCalGas. And that means I'm going through a lot of comms, both internal and external, making sure that the information is the right information we're providing, it's timely, and that we have the consistent touch points necessary, both internal to inform employees, but also that we're talking to the community. And so as I go through my day, I ask those questions, are we covering and talking to the right folks? Do we have the right messaging? Is it appropriate? Is it timely? And is it in language? And is it making sure that we reach the folks that need the information?
In hindsight, is there anything you would do differently?
I think, hindsight is 20/20, right? You can always say I could have, should have, would have. But I kind of look at it as a learning space. I'm one to be a lifetime learner. And so I pick up where I've dropped the ball and I have, and learn from that and kind of move forward. Christina, can I make a point here? I talked about raising support and providing, being intentional about our giving. And I do want to challenge other corporations to do the same. And I've seen it out there and I thank them. But I want to raise the opportunity to think a little bit differently. I do want to raise the opportunity, and I do challenge my team, how we are giving during outside of these large donations. How are we looking at repurposing and looking at supporting our community nonprofits going forward? We have our day-to-day and yearly giving. I want to challenge that what we would have called normal cycle, and look at what can we do differently. So if I ask the question, are we looking at bypassing the opportunity to keep them solvent? Can we ask that question? What do you need now? Not in December or November when that potential program or event that you have planned, that might not even exist. Yeah. So what can we think forward looking to ask the question about solvency, and is this nonprofit going to be around? Can we help support their effort? So I'm challenging my team to look at that differently, to have conversations early, and to look at what we had normally thought of a programmatic and event support, and look to see what we can do now. These are good questions to ask.
You make an amazing point and great recommendations as well. And I think life as we knew it, it's never going to be the same as we resume, quote, operations and return to what was normal. I think this has taught us all a big lesson. Yeah. And to your point, Andy, I think it's important to be able to support those nonprofits, which are hanging on by a thin thread, some of them. By the same token, it's not just always money. Sometimes your time makes a big difference. Remember, our seniors were the ones that were disproportionately affected, and sometimes just writing a letter to a senior through one of our many organizations is something that you can do. So I think we're at the time where we can take some Q&As. And Cindy, I know you've been on our chat box. Do we have a question for Andy that we can toss his way?
So I want to encourage folks, we don't currently have any Q&As right now in the chat box, but I do want to highlight for you folks, I went ahead and inserted some of the programs that Andy was talking about with the link for you guys to be able to access. Also the infographic that I pulled up. Andy, there's another infographic I want to pull up for you if you want to discuss a little bit about it. This is the one about the laundry trucks in LA.
Oh yeah, actually, I like to forego those. Those are great nonprofit organizations. I actually want to engage a little more on where this particular audience and beyond, how they can continue to reach out to us. I mean, the laundry truck is great. Those support are very important in supporting our homeless population. And I think that's a partnership that we've been able to give. But I do want to talk about two items real quickly, if you don't have any questions for me, and that's great. But I do want to talk about our supplier diversity program, our diverse business enterprise. And that's about how small businesses can do businesses with us, how you can be our supplier. And it runs the gamut. It can be the simple folks that do marketing to professional services like legal services and everything in between. If you have the capability and are looking to partner with utilities, and I'm one, there's many others throughout the state under the California Public Utility Commission, we are very intentional about making sure we partner with minority, women, service disabled vets, LGBT-owned businesses, because we know that we want to make a very intentional partnership. And it's important because these organizations are from our community. And I want to put that out there. So visit our information, and I will provide that information later as well under supplier diversity. But I think it's another way to partner with SoCalGas.
Andy, I do have a question for you. And
Sure.
as we look at a crisis, we also look at an opportunity, which is what it always provides for us. Moving forward in the job and the breadth of what you do, how do you see the gas company, its future, and foreseeing anything of this nature, any other type of a disaster? This one we never thought we would see in our lifetime. But what are you doing thinking ahead, only because I know you're already there, to face something similar in the future?
Thank you. That's a good question. I think one of the things, the lessons that we're learning through this is we've always, through crisis, have stood up what we call an incident command structure, the ICS, and making sure that both communication as well as response goes through and channels and funnels through the system. So one of the things that we're talking about is just the way we work and operate. As I mentioned, we've got half our folks working from home. The fact of the matter is, do people have to return to brick and mortar? Do folks have to really be on the road, have windshield time? That's unnecessary. Can folks really start from home, in from home, and really cut carbon footprint? Really look at the ways that we could be productive, both internally, externally. I get it. We are human by nature and we need relationships. But we're thinking about that. And the other thing that's interesting is look at the amount of paper that has been reduced. I know for a fact, I've printed hardly anything, but yet have been in production with meetings and individuals in moving information forward. And so we got to think differently. Do we need all the real estate that we need? And if we take a look at, the housing issue and the homelessness issue, that means there's going to be a lot of real estate on the opportunities to think differently. So that's another way that we're looking at this, Christina.
I think it's obligated us all to work from home and be set up and try and figure it out. I was talking to a friend who's at the UC system, and for the past 2-3 years, they've been trying to go online to do some classes, and guess what? They did it in 2 weeks because they were obligated to do so. Andy, anything else you want to add that we may have missed?
Just one last thing I do want to mention, because we're an essential service and we've been operating, we're hiring. We still have the opportunity to bring on folks, and we're always looking for talent at SoCalGas. And it runs a gamut from entry-level jobs, whether you're answering the phone on that customer service end or you're one of our field operators. And it runs all the way through professional services in the environmental space and the policy space. I can tell you, coming into this company, there's one thing I will tell you, it feels like home. I've had the opportunity to progress. I've been very fortunate, worked hard. The elevator rose up for me, and I want to send it right back down to make sure that it includes a lot of people.
Thank you, Andy. That's appreciate your passion and your dedication to all of California. your clients, everyone that you come in touch with. Thank you for joining us, Andy Carrasco from the SoCal Gas Company. I want to direct your attention to the posted resources on our chat. I do want to talk a little bit about our nonprofit resilience signature campaign. Earlier this month, as we have partnered with LCLA, ULF has kicked off a signature campaign for nonprofit resilience, and I love the name because who would ever thunk that we needed to be resilient during this time, but we have to. It's to ensure local nonprofits that primarily serve our communities of color can withstand the current crises. Our current goal is to collect 500 signatures by May 1st, which unbelievably is tomorrow already. And as a follow-up to the last question, please comment on the importance of investing, sustaining, and advocating for grassroots nonprofits through efforts like CNR. Now more than ever. Please sign, share, and see you all next week.